The sun was beginning to dip behind the horizon, casting long shadows over the dusty compound, where the scent of freshly cooked jollof rice lingered from earlier preparations for the evening meal. Bolu jabbed a finger at the large, leather-bound ledger on the bamboo table in the center of the courtyard. "Tunde, explain this." His voice cracked, echoing the betrayal that lay heavy between them. Tunde blinked, his gaze fixed on the ledger like it might swallow him whole, removing the need to answer. Around them, the hum of the impending evening, buzzing insects, murmuring neighbors, seemed to pause. He could feel the eyes of their clan on him, the Ajogan, wrestling through the tendrils of truth and deceit. "Ohun Teodara, Bolu," he began cautiously. "Perhaps there's a mistake. These figures—" "There are no mistakes here," Bolu interrupted, his voice edged with fatigue and frustration. "I've checked them thrice. Do you think me a fool?" His words carried the weight of years of shared struggles and dreams. Every naira accounted for, but none reaching where it should. "You are the treasurer, Tunde. You should explain." Tunde's eyes shifted uneasily to the ground, where the red earth seemed more honest than the situation he found himself in. He felt the sting of accusing whispers circling in the air, not loud enough for the young ones to hear, but clear enough to weave doubt into their youthful minds. As dusk settled like a gentle shroud, Bolu retreated from the courtyard, leaving Tunde with only the weight of unanswered questions and his silence. Within the walls of the old family house, a conversation unfolded like rough fabric pulled too tight. "Bolu, is it possible?" Ajoke, Bolu's wife, asked softly, her hands smoothing the ancient iro wrapped around her waist. "I mean, Tunde, we've known him since our hairs were still as short as the grass around the compound." Bolu sighed, tracing the edge of the ledger with calloused fingers. "I don't want to believe it a joke, but the numbers speak their own language. Debts, missing funds, and an incomplete farm project that should be thriving." Yoruba say, "Initi aki, loma ngbe waka hun," Ijoke whispered, her eyes filled with a mix of worry and insight. In the heart of the night, Tunde sat alone in his room, illuminated by the flickering light of an oil lamp. He was running his hands through his hair when a soft knock pulled him from his thoughts. It was Akin, the young boy from next door, whose curiosity and sense of justice made him an unwelcome shadow at times. "Auntie Moji said I must tell you," Akin said with all seriousness. "She saw Uncle Femi give you envelopes last week, brown envelopes, the kind that are sealed." Tunde felt his heart drop like a stone in a river. "Akin, don't you know these are grown folks' matters?" "I know, but Auntie Moji said they weren't for good." The boy's eyes were wide, sincerity etched into his youthful features. Along the riverbank, the next morning, Tunde sat, hoping the whispering current might ease the pounding in his head. He watched the frail straw boats of local fishermen bobbing quietly along the banks, the rhythmic paddling echoing deep inside him. Bolu's words from the confrontation replayed relentlessly in his mind. They were more than numbers. They were a trust fractured, a community distant. How had it come to this? Where was the path he had missed that led him here instead of the place of honor he had once envisioned? Bolu paced the narrow hallways of his home, feeling the walls closing in, suffocated by unfinished plans and mounting accusations. Skipping breakfast, he had gone instead to the elders, seeking an audience. The council was to gather in 2 days under the iroko tree, a neutral ground. Suspicion gnawed at the edges of his thoughts. Could Femi, their childhood friend turned businessman, truly be involved? Could greed have spread like a quiet infection in their midst, the poison in their community well? Bolu returned to his compound, where Ajoke met him at the entrance, concern filling her eyes. "I heard from the women at the well," she started, her voice almost hesitant. "Femi is boasting of a new vehicle, yet he claims his business hasn't prospered." Bolu's hands clenched involuntarily. "We cannot accuse without evidence, but," he paused, feeling the knots in his stomach twist tighter, "we must watch our steps." Ajoke placed a reassuring hand on his arm, her presence as comforting as the first rains. "Justice has its own journey, Bolu. Sometimes," she said softly, "what is right takes time." Under the fading afternoon sun, Tunde stood in the market square, absorbed in a sea of vibrant, swirling fabrics and boisterous voices. Commerce ebbed and flowed around him, yet he felt isolated, a solitary figure amongst the vibrant chaos. "Brother Tunde," called a familiar voice, breaking his reverie. It was Funke, a fruit seller with an ear for gossip and a heart as expansive as the sky. Her eyes brimmed with curiosity as she approached. "You've been scarce. Heard there's discord over funds missing." Tunde nodded grimly, avoiding the gleeful spark in her eyes. "There are complications." "Remember," Funke advised knowingly, her voice serene, like a gentle reprimand. "The truth is like a knife. It cuts clean and straight through." Later that night, Tunde found himself in Akin's family compound, the starlit sky a canopy above them. He spoke with Femi, whose recent wealth had become the talk of the town. Their conversation began with polite inquiries, but quickly simmered to boiling. "Tunde, you seem troubled," Femi smirked, reclining under the glow of the lantern. "Are you responsible for this shadow on our name?" Tunde asked, keeping his voice low. Though the accusation was sharp, Femi's laugh was a sharp cut in the quiet night. "Accusing me? You need evidence, not hearsay from children playing games." Tunde straightened up, determination burning through him. "Evidence," he murmured, turning the word over like a bitter fruit. "We shall find it." Back at his home, Bolu sat at the table long after the last light faded from the sky. Thoughts tangled as he mapped the road ahead. The council meeting was only a day away, and whispers of deceit wrapped around their family name like a noose. Suddenly, a knock at the door jolted him to his feet. A joke rose behind him, her expression mirroring his apprehension. As Bolu swung the door open, he was confronted by a messenger, breathless and sweating under the weight of urgent news. "There is talk in the village," the young man began, words tumbling in haste. "A witness has come forward about the missing funds. They insist on speaking with you before the council meets at dawn." The messenger's words struck like lightning, electrifying the tension that already filled the air. Bolu's heart thumped in his chest as he turned to a joke. "Who could it be?" he muttered, eyes wide with the prospect of truth at last stepping into the light. The answers lay a breath away, but whether they would bring salvation or further shatter trust remained uncertain. As the quiet of the night embraced them, Bolu and Tunde stood on the brink of revelation, their fate hanging in the balance like a fragile thread. Bolu inhaled sharply, feeling the weight of the messenger's words settle heavily around him like the oppressive humidity that swallowed the village before a storm. He nodded to the young man, muttering a quiet thanks, then turned to a joke, her eyes reflecting a mix of fear and resolve. "We cannot let this chance slip through our fingers," a joke said softly, yet her voice carried the firmness of conviction. Bolu nodded, gripping her hand. Together, they moved toward the edge of the compound, where the quiet whispers of the night seemed to echo their uncertainty. The air was thick with anticipation as they made their way to the small hut where the witness waited. There, in the flickering glow of a lonely kerosene lamp, sat an unexpected figure. Musa, an elderly farmer from the outskirts of the village, known for his quiet wisdom and watchful eyes. "Bolu," Musa greeted them, his voice raspy yet calm. "I've come forward because truth is a lantern in the darkness, and it must be lit for all to see." Bolu felt a twinge of hope and anxiety brewing inside. "Musa, you know something about the missing funds?" Musa nodded, gesturing to an old, weathered journal on his lap. "I've seen Femi making deals in the market. Transfers, side glances, hushed conversations when he thought no one was watching. I've recorded what I could here," he said, tapping the journal. "The council must know." The revelation sent currents of shock and relief through Bolu. Here was evidence, yet there was also an underlying fear of what unmasking the truth might unleash. As dawn galloped across the sky, painting it in shades of gold and crimson, the villagers gathered beneath the sprawling expanse of the Iroko tree, its roots firmly embedded in the rich soil of tradition. Bolu stood at the forefront, feeling the familiar weight of leadership pressing on his shoulders. Tunde was beside him, weariness visible in the lines of his face, yet there was a newfound fire in his eyes, a resolve forged in the crucible of adversity. The elders, bearing the wisdom of years etched into their very beings, watched as Musa stepped forward, journal in hand. The village held its breath as Musa began to speak, his words unspooling a tale of deception that snaked through their community, binding them in threads of betrayal and disbelief. Femi stood at the back, his face a mask of indignation. "This is madness," he scoffed, yet the tremor in his voice betrayed his confidence. "You trust the ramblings of an old man with a tattered journal?" Though accusations flew like arrows, Bolu raised his hand, silence settling like dust after a storm. "Musa has shared his truth. We must examine it with open hearts," he announced, the weight of leadership evident in his tone. The village buzzed with emotion, anger, shock, and distrust woven into the fabric of their tight-knit community. As the council dispersed, whispers lingered in the air, each voice a thread in the tapestry of uncertainty. Later, under the cool shade of a mango tree, Tunde found himself alone with Bolu. A joke had joined the village women, who were gathering to pray and offer support in these troubled times. "Bolu," Tunde said, his voice cracking along fault lines of regret and guilt, "I was wrong to keep silent. I feared losing everything." Bolu studied him, a friend whose trust had been battered but not entirely broken. "We were both caught in a web spun from fear and pride," Bolu admitted softly. "But there's a Yoruba saying, Eniti odide ni owuro, one kose onika lukusi," which means, "The one who wakes in the morning is forgiven the oversight of the night." Tunde nodded, understanding the forgiveness offered so generously. Yet remorse burned inside him like a relentless ember. The moon hung low in the sky as Bolu knelt by his bedside, his heart a hurricane of emotions seeking an anchor. The room was filled with a soothing quiet, like the serene lull of the sea against the shore. "Lord, guide us through this," Bolu prayed, feeling the roughness of the mat beneath his knees, the humility it instilled. "Let your light shine upon the darkness and heal our wounds." As he prayed, a peace unfamiliar yet warm unfolded within him. Bolu didn't have all the answers, and the resolution would not be swift, but there was a promise, a gentle assurance that God walks with those burdened by hard roads. The following day, news spread like the Harmattan wind. Armed with Musa's journal and the testimony of villagers who had seen transactions firsthand, Bolu and Tunde approached the local authorities, committed to seeking justice with integrity. It was a path fraught with challenges. Femi's connections running deep, his influence like an old vine clinging stubbornly to the walls of power. Yet, with each step, Bolu felt the weight of divine purpose. The journey wasn't about exacting revenge, but sowing seeds of truth that would bloom into healing and restoration. As weeks passed, the village began to heal, each day a brushstroke painting over the scars of betrayal. Tunde worked tirelessly within the community, determined to rebuild trust, acknowledging every uplifted hand that offered forgiveness and every kind word that mended what was broken. Bolu too felt the subtle embrace of grace, not a quick fix, but a slow, deliberate knitting together of lives once torn apart. One evening, as the sun dipped beneath the horizon, they gathered in the courtyard, the air filled with the aroma of jollof rice and the warm laughter of children playing among the shadows. A joke stood beside Bolu, a quiet strength in her presence. "You see, Bolu," she murmured, "God doesn't promise there won't be storms, but he does say we'll never face them alone." As Bolu watched Tunde join in the lively discussions around the table, he remembered the scripture whispered gently into his heart during prayer. "Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the children of God." It was a truth that resonated, every word a balm to their weary souls. Though they had not forgotten the pain, hope shone like the first stars in an evening sky, a reminder of God's unwavering love lighting even the darkest path.
Thank you so much for listening to this intriguing story. I hope it touched you or taught you something. For more stories like this, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the page. And guys, if you'd like to see a part 2, or you have thoughts on what happened, let me know in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you. See you in the next story.